I never imagined my life could unravel so quickly. Just weeks ago, I was living the dream, or so I thought. A stable life, a prestigious job, and a future that looked bright enough to dazzle anyone who glanced in my direction. I had worked hard for it, earned it, and wore it like an armor of pride. But life has a way of reminding you just how fragile it can be. Please adapt this chapter as is. It all started with a mistake, and not a catastrophic one. It was small, forgettable, something I thought wouldn't matter. But in the complex world I worked in, small mistakes don't stay small for long. A single misstep at work cascaded into an avalanche. Deadlines missed, trust lost, arguments that spiraled out of control. What began as a bad day quickly became a crisis. That crisis, it couldn't be contained. The verdict came swift and brutal. My job was gone, just like that. Years of effort wiped clean with a single signature at the bottom of a termination letter. It felt like losing a limb, something I had relied on every day, something that was a part of me, torn away. Please adapt this chapter as is. And with it went my self-confidence, my sense of purpose. Who was I without that job, without that title? But the fall didn't end there. Losing my job was just the beginning. You start to see who your real friends are when your life isn't shiny anymore. For me, that realization hurt worse than the termination letter. People called less, plans dried up, the invitations to dinners, the check-ins, the laughter, all of it faded into silence. Some friends disappeared quietly, slipping away like shadows at dusk. Others left with a permanence that felt sharper, more deliberate, a decision to detach themselves from my failures. And then there were the bills, rent payments piling up, credit cards maxing out. The savings I had built over years dwindled, reduced to numbers that looked smaller every time I opened my bank app. The worst part wasn't just the money, it was realizing that I had nothing left to fall back on. No safety net, no plan B. It was just me, and an endless series of problems I didn't know how to solve. Each day felt heavier than the last, each night felt emptier. I could feel the weight of loneliness pressing against me, suffocating me like a cold fog that wouldn't lift. Sleep became restless, food became tasteless, hope became non-existent. Please adapt this chapter as is. But the moment I truly realized I'd hit the bottom, that moment came on the darkest night yet. I didn't plan it, didn't see it coming. One evening, as I sat alone in my apartment, an apartment I knew I'd lose soon, I felt the full scale of my collapse. The walls seemed closer than they'd ever been, their silence deafening. There was no laughter, no phone calls, no emails from friends. Nobody was waiting to check in on me. There was just me and the echo of my own failures. I sat in that silence for hours, thinking, regretting, replaying every choice I had made to get to this point. The bad decisions, the bad luck, the crises. Everything felt insurmountable, like an avalanche had buried me too deep to ever dig my way out. This was it, rock bottom. Nothing could pierce the darkness that night. No hope, no distractions, just the raw truth staring back at me. I had nothing. No money, no job, no comfort, no connection to the outside world. Just a heavy sense of failure sitting on my chest. But as I sat there, wrapped in the cold weight of rock bottom, something shifted. It wasn't dramatic. There was no lightning bolt, no epiphany, just a quiet realization. Rock bottom felt dark, yes, but it was also still. And in that stillness, there was room to see things clearly. No distractions, no illusions. Just me and the undeniable truth of where I was. I hated where I'd ended up. Every single part of me loathed it. But I couldn't escape the question that kept circling through my mind. Maybe this was where I needed to be. Maybe hitting the lowest point wasn't about failure. It was about dismantling everything that wasn't working, everything that was superficial. Maybe rock bottom was trying to teach me something. It wasn't hope, not yet, but it was something, a seed maybe, something that whispered, this isn't where your story ends. This is where something has to change. And that change, it starts with you. That was the night it all became clear to me. I couldn't lie in the rubble and wait for someone to rescue me. The collapse had happened. It was brutal, and it hurt in ways I wasn't sure I'd ever recover from. But if I wanted to climb out of this dark abyss I'd found myself in, I had to take the first step. One step. Because maybe rock bottom wasn't the end of my story. Maybe it was just the beginning. This is the end of part 1, the collapse. But it's not the end of my journey, because there's always something after the fall. Something waiting, hidden in the shadows of despair. A way forward, maybe. A light. And it starts here. It starts with the first step.